get go.
Just want to start today with a trigger warning disclaimer. This podcast contains descriptions of death and drowning. Hi, I'm Katie Carpenter.
I'm Terry Kovanitz.
We apologize for any and all mistakes today as we begin this episode of Titanic Transcripts.
Mr. Lowe, did you hear Major Puchin yesterday when he said that a large number of the coal stokers came up onto the deck and crowded back the women, and a large officer came forward and drove them away?
Yes, I heard the Major say something to that effect.
Did you see that?
No, sir.
Was there a large number of the crew, either stokers or otherwise, on the top deck at any time?
I think I had 4 or 5 firemen in my boat, but I do not remember seeing a crowd of them. I will say that I did not see them.
Tell me, if you can, how many men there were in lifeboat number 3?
I should say maybe, I don't know, about 25?
Have you ever seen any of them since?
No, sir.
Do you know any of them?
No, sir.
Then if you loaded lifeboat number 3 with about 25 men, and she contained altogether about 45 people, you had 25 men and 20 women?
Yes, somewhere along there.
Now, you wish us to understand that there were no women available.
Not at that time. Whether there were women there and they would not get into the boat is a different matter. I do not know.
Did you see any women there who would not leave their husbands?
I saw some women there, but I did not have time to go and drive them away. I simply shouted, "Women and children!"
That is all a part. You do not need to say that. That simply takes time. Did you see any women, when you were loading lifeboat number 3, who were unwilling to be separated from their husbands and their families and refused to get into the lifeboat?
Well, they did not respond to the call.
So after 45 people had been put into lifeboat number 3, it was lowered?
Yes.
And did you help lower it?
Yes.
And what did you do?
I was standing at the side of the ship watching the after end.
Watching the after end. And was the boat lowered without difficulty?
Yes.
Did you see it when it struck the water?
Yes, we lowered it right down into the water.
And when it reached the water, did you see it again?
No, I did not see it again.
You are unable to say what officer, if any, had charge of it?
It was Mr. Pittman.
There's a possibility that it was Officer Pittman. That is all you were able to say.
That's all I'm able to say. I know it was nobody else.
So what did you do next?
I went to the emergency boat.
That is a smaller boat?
Yes.
And how many will that hold?
She's supposed to carry, I think, 40. That is floating.
And how many lowering?
I would say about 30.
And did you help fill that boat?
Yes, sir.
Do you know anybody that was in that boat?
No. I think there were about 5 women. I think there were parties in this boat.
Do you know who they were?
No.
What was the number of that boat?
Number 1.
And how many women were there in number 1?
I do not know whether it was 3 or I suppose it could be about 5.
And how many men?
I suppose there'd be about as near as I could judge 22 men.
And any children?
I do not remember seeing any children.
Do you know any of these men?
I do not.
Did you know any of them at the time?
No, sir. I never met any of them.
Do you know whether there was any officer in that boat?
No, there was not any officer.
Were there any sailors in that boat?
I think there was a quartermaster, unless I'm mistaken.
And what is his name?
I do not know, sir.
Is this the same boat that was referred to by Major Puchin?
Which boat did he refer to?
I'm asking you. He said there was a quartermaster in his boat.
No, I think it was boat number 3 that he went in, and we're now speaking of boat number 1.
How many sailors were in that boat?
I think there were 4 or 5.
Who were the other men? Were they passengers or members of the crew?
The others were passengers.
All passengers?
Yes, sir. As far as I could remember and as far as I could make out.
And all men?
And all men.
But you cannot recollect anybody that was in that boat, with the possible exception of the quartermaster?
No, I cannot.
Were you particular to see that someone was put in the boat who could handle it?
As far as my own judgment could tell me, yes, sir. I remember asking. I remember I hollered down from the boat deck to the water and said, "Who is that in the emergency boat?" And I could not quite hear what he said.
You mean that you helped load the emergency boat number 1 and lowered it down to the water 70 feet below the place where you loaded it before you asked who was in it?
Well, I knew that there was a quartermaster in it, but I did not know his name.
You waited until he got 70 feet below you?
Yes.
And then you tried to ascertain his name?
Yes.
Was that the first attempt you had made to ascertain his name?
As far as I remember.
And did you ascertain his name?
I heard something, but I do not remember what he said now.
And you do not know the name of any other person in lifeboat number 1?
That is the emergency boat, not lifeboat number 1. It is emergency boat number 1.
How long did it take to lower a lifeboat or an emergency boat and clear her away, lower her into the water?
I could not tell you how long it would take because it varies.
About how long?
I do not know that I could tell you how long.
Did it take 20 minutes or approximately how long?
Yes, I should say from the start to finish of putting a boat over until you get her into the water, it will take you somewhere about 20 minutes.
And does that include uncovering the boat, taking the canvas, or covering off of it?
You will have to uncover it and let go your gripes and all that.
I say, does that time include that?
Yes.
You had lowered 5 and 3 and 1. If it took you about 20 minutes on each, you were an hour in loading these 3 boats and getting them off?
I do not know how long I was, sir, because I did not know the time or anything else. I was anxious to do all I could to help everybody, and I didn't know anything about the time.
Where did you go next?
I next went across the deck.
To the other side?
To the other side, that is, the port side, and I met the 6th officer, Moody, and asked Moody, what are you doing? He said, I'm getting these boats away. So we filled both 14 and 16 with women and children.
And which one did you fill first?
Number 14. I did not fill 16. Moody filled 16.
You filled 14?
Yes.
Was Mr. Lightoller the 2nd officer there?
He was there a part of that time, and he went away somewhere else. He must have gone to the 2nd boat forward.
Who had charge of loading lifeboat number 14?
I had.
And how many people did you put in?
58.
How many women do you know?
They were all women and children, bar one passenger, who was an Italian, and he sneaked in, and he was dressed like a woman.
Had woman's clothing on?
He had a shawl over his head and everything else, and I only found out at the last moment, and there was another passenger that I took for rowing.
And who was that?
That was a chap by the name of C. Williams.
Where did he live?
I do not know where he lived.
Have you ever seen him since?
Yes, I saw him since on board the Carpathia.
Was he one of the men whose names you have on that paper?
I have his name, that is his home address, but not his New York address.
I would like his home address.
I can give you that. Will you have it now?
Yes, also the name of any other man or woman in the boat that you know and their address.
Okay. C. Williams, racket champion of the world, he has here. Number 2, Drury Road, Harrow on the Hill, Middlesex, England.
Give all the others?
You want them in my own boat, sir?
Yes. You said you had the names of all in the boat.
Well, you see, I was in charge of 5 boats.
But this inn of the boat you were in yourself, number 14.
Yes, I will give them to you.
This is the one you loaded.
You want those in the boat from the davits, not what I picked up?
No, I'm going to ask you that later.
Okay. The next were Mrs. A.T. Compton and Miss S.H. Compton, Laurel House, Lakewood, New Jersey.
Go ahead a little faster if you can.
That is all.
Those are the only names you took down?
Out of my own particular boat.
I thought you had a card there that they had signed with their autographs.
Who?
The passengers who were in your boat, number 14.
No, sir. I'm no autograph hunter.
I understand, but I thought you told me you had a card of that kind.
No, sir.
You say there were how many people in your boat?
58.
And that was when you left the davits.
That was when I left the davits.
How many people got into the boat after it reached the water or at any other deck?
None, sir. You see, I chased all my passengers out of my boat and emptied her into 4 other boats that I had. I herded 5 boats altogether.
Yes, what were they?
I was in number 14. Then I had 10, I had 12, and I had another collapsible, and 1 other boat, the number of which I do not know. I herded them together and roped them, made them all tie up, and of course I had to wait until the yells and shrieks had subsided for the people to thin out, and then I deemed it safe for me to go amongst the wreckage. So I transferred all my passengers, somewhere about 53 passengers, from my boat, and I equally distributed them between my other 4 boats. Then I asked for volunteers to go with me to the wreck, and it was at this time that I found this Italian. He came aft, and he had a shawl over his head, and I suppose he had skirts. Anyhow, I pulled the shawl off his face and saw that he was a man. He was a great hurry to get into the other boat, and I caught hold of him and pitched him in.
Pitched him in?
Yes, he was not worthy of being handled better.
You pitched him in among the women?
No, sir, in the fore part of the lifeboat in which I transferred my passengers.
Did you use some pretty emphatic language when you did that?
No, sir, I did not say a word to him.
Just picked him up and pitched him into this other lifeboat?
Yes. Then I went off and I rowed to the wreckage and around the wreckage, and I picked up 4 people.
Dead or alive?
4 alive.
And who were they?
I do not know.
Have you ever found out?
I do not know who those 3 live persons were. They never came near me afterwards, either to say this, that, or the other. But one died, and that was a Mr. Hoyt of New York. And it took all the boat's crew to pull this gentleman into the boat, because he was an enormous man, and I suppose he had been soaked fairly well with water. And when we picked him up, he was bleeding from the mouth and from the nose. So we did get him on board, and I propped him up at the stern of the boat, and we let go of his collar, took his collar off, and loosened his shirt so as to give him every chance to breathe, but unfortunately he died. I suppose he was too far gone when we picked him up. But the other 3 survived. I then left the wreck. I went right around, and strange to say, I did not see a single female body, not one around the wreckage.
Did you have a light in your boat?
No, sir. I left my crowded boat somewhere, I should say, about between 3:30 and 4 in the morning, and after I had been around, it was just breaking day, and I'm quite satisfied that I had a real good look around, and that there was nothing left.
Now I'm going to ask you to stop there for just a moment. And you can tell what you did then?
Then what?
After you looked around, then what did you do?
Well, I then thought, the thought flashed through my mind, perhaps the ship has not seen us in the semi-gloom.
The Carpathia?
Yes, I could see her coming up, and I thought, I'm the fastest boat out of the lot, as I was sailing, you see. I was going through the water very nicely, going at about, 4 knots, 5 knots maybe. It may have been a little more, may have been 6, but anyhow, I was bowling along very nicely.
In the direction of the Carpathia?
In the direction of the Carpathia, and I thought, I'm the fastest boat, and I think if I go toward her, for fear of her leaving us to our doom, that was what I was scared about, and you will understand the day was dawning more and more so as the time came on.
I assume that to be so.
And by, I noticed a collapsible boat, and it looked rather sorry, so I thought, I will go down and pick her up and make sure of her. So I went about, and I sailed down to this collapsible, and I took her in tow.
Whom did you find in control of this collapsible?
I do not know, sir, because you must understand that we are on shipboard. We do not call men so-and-so by their names.
I do not know but what you might designate him.
Well, if we want a quartermaster, we do not say Bright, or whatever his name is. We say quartermaster.
I do not care about that feature. I will ask you a straight question, whether you know anybody that was in the collapsible boat.
I knew one.
Who?
Well, I think she was in that boat. That is Mrs. H.B. Harris of New York. She had a broken arm.
But you did not know anyone else.
You must understand that by this time my first boat's crew had gotten scattered.
I'm not asking about that at all. I'm asking whether you knew anyone in this collapsible boat that you attached to your own except this woman.
Mrs. Harris, that is all.
Did you come to know any of them afterwards?
No, sir.
I want to take you back a moment. Before you transferred the 53 people from your lifeboat, number 14, to the other lifeboats, including this Italian in woman's attire, you say you lay off a bit. Where? How far from the Titanic?
Well, I lay off from the Titanic, as near as I could roughly estimate, about 150 yards, because I wanted to be close enough in order to pick up anybody that came by.
I understand. But you said you lay off a bit to wait until it quieted down?
Yes.
Until what quieted down?
Well, until the drowning people had thinned out.
You lay off a bit until the drowning people had quieted down?
Yes.
And then you went to the scene of the wreck?
Yes.
Had their cries quieted down before you started?
Yes. They had subsided a good deal. It just would not have been wise or safe for me to have gone there before, because the whole lot of us would have been swamped, and then nobody would have been saved.
But your boat had, according to your own admission, a water capacity of 65 people.
Yes, but then what are you going to do with a boat of 65 where 1,600 people are drowning?
You could have saved 15.
You could not do it, sir.
At least you made no attempt to do it.
I made the attempt, sir, as soon as any man could do so, and I'm not scared of saying it. I did not hang back or anything else.
I'm not saying you hung back. I am just saying that you said you lay by until it had quieted down.
You had to. It was absolutely not safe. You could not do otherwise because you would have hundreds of people around your boat, and the boat would go down just like that.
About how long did you lay by?
I should say an hour and a half, just somewhere under 2 hours.
On your oars?
No, we did not. We unshipped our oars, and I made the 5 boats fast together, and we hung on like that.
Did you see the Titanic sink?
I did, sir.
How long after you left her side in the lifeboat did she sink?
I suppose about half an hour? No, well, yeah, I'll stick with that. Somewhere about half an hour.
Then you laid an hour after she sank.
An hour after she sank.
Before going to the scene of the wreck.
Before going to the scene of the wreck.
And you were about 150 yards off.
I was just on the margin. If anybody had struggled out of the mass, I was there to pick them up, but it was useless for me to go into the mass.
You mean for anybody?
It would have been suicide.
Do you mean that if anybody had applied to you for permission to get aboard, you would have accorded them the right?
I would have taken anybody and everybody, that is, because we could have handled them there. We could never have handled them in the mass.
I just wanted to see what you did toward it. How did the Titanic go down?
She went down head first and inclined at an angle. That is, when she took her final plunge, she was inclined at an angle of about 75 degrees.
Almost perpendicular?
Pretty well, on an angle about like that.
Were you close enough to see whether there were any people on the afterdeck at that time?
No, sir. It was pretty well dark and we could not see anything.
Did you see any fire on the Titanic?
No, sir.
Did you hear any explosion?
I heard explosions, yes. I should say about 4.
At what time with reference to your departure from the ship?
That was after I left the ship.
What time was it with reference to your departure from the ship?
About, I should say, quarter of an hour or 20 minutes.
About 20 minutes.
Yes.
When you left the ship's side in lifeboat number 14, you said you had about 53 people.
58 people. That is 53 passengers.
And when you lay by outside with boats 10 and 12...
Boats 10 and 12 and 14 and the collapsible.
You took them out of your boat, 53 of these people, and distributed them in the other boats.
Yes, sir.
And when you did that, did you feel like you were taxing the capacity of the other boats?
Well, what had you to do? You had to do something.
But you did not do anything at that time. You took those people out and placed them in these other boats, including the Italian that you ejected. You waited until things had quieted down an hour and a half, and then sailed around the place where the Titanic had sank. And you found 3 people, all of whom you took into your boat, one of whom died. When you went alongside the Carpathia, how many people were in your boat?
There were about 45.
Where did you get them?
I got them out of the sinking collapsible.
An overturned collapsible?
No, sir. It was a collapsible that some wreckage had pierced. I was coming to that when you stopped me.
I would like to have you come to it now.
I had taken this first collapsible in tow, and I noticed that there was another collapsible in a worse plight than this one that I had in tow. I was just thinking and wondering whether it would be better for me to cut this one adrift and let her go, and for me to travel faster to the sinking one. But I thought, no, I think I can manage it. So I cracked on a bit, and I got down there just in time and took off, I suppose, about 20 men and 1 lady out of the sinking collapsible.
Did you leave any bodies on there?
I left 3 bodies on it.
And what was the number of that boat?
I do not know, sir. It was one of the collapsibles.
But you took off of it 20 men.
About 20 men.
And 3 women.
1 woman.
And left on board how many?
3 male bodies.
So that in this damaged collapsible there were 24 people altogether.
21 and 3 are 24. Altogether, yes, sir.
What became of the other 3 that you left on it?
As to the degree of people, as to the 3 people that I left on her, of course, I may have been a bit hard-hearted, I cannot say, but I thought to myself, I'm not here to worry about bodies, I'm here for life, to save life and not to bother about bodies, so I left them.
Oh, were they dead when you left them?
They were dead, yes, sir. The people on the raft told me they'd been dead quite some time. I said, are you sure they are dead? And they said, absolutely sure. I also made certain they were dead, and questioned them one and all before I left this collapsible.
Did you attempt to find anything on their persons that would identify them?
No, sir, I did not.
Do you know whether anyone did?
No, sir, nobody, because they were all up to their ankles in water when I took them off. Another 3 minutes and they would have been down.
From what you saw of these 3 persons, would you say, or could you say, whether they were old or young?
No, sir, I would not like to state anything. All I can state is that they were male.
They were men?
Yes.
Were they of the crew or passengers?
That I would not like to say.
You could not tell?
No, sir.
Did they have life preservers on, or did they not?
I think they had life belts on.
Have you ever learned since that night who these 3 people were?
No, sir.
Mr. Lowe, after taking these passengers from the collapsible that was injured, you headed in the direction of the Carpathia.
Yes, I left for the Carpathia.
And did you succeed in landing them?
I landed everybody.
All of them?
And the corpse included.
Including the corpse of the man that had died on your boat?
Yes.
What, if anything, did you do after that?
There was nothing to do, sir. What was there to do?
I did not say there was anything. I simply asked what you did.
No, sir. There was nothing to do.
I do not want to press you about this matter too hard, nor do I want to overtax you. But I would like to know whether, in the early morning of Monday, you passed near or counted the icebergs you saw, I believe about a dozen or so of them?
There must have been about a dozen. Somewheres from 12 to 20, I should say.
Do you know anything more about this accident that bears upon the question of the discipline of the men and the collision or impact that you have stated?
No, sir. I do not know any more.
We will not go over it all, or any of it for that matter. I will be very glad if you will complete the point that I made regarding the manner in which you took the boat's position at 8 p.m. Sunday. You said you could do that from the chart. If you would kindly do so...
I cannot do it on that thing, sir.
You cannot do it on that chart?
No, sir.
Have you anything, Mr. Franklin, from which he could make the figures?
I do not think so. He would have to have his instruments and calculation tables to do it.
Then you are unable to give that information accurately from any data you have?
No, sir, I cannot. Let him do it and submit it as part of his testimony.
I would like very much, if you can work it out and hand it to me as part of your testimony, I would like to insert it into the record.
I do not remember the course that she steered from then on. You must have the course.
Is that absolutely necessary?
Oh, yes, if...
Wait a minute. Would the course at 8 o'clock be necessary to determine the speed at noon on that day?
No, sir. The course...
All right, stop right there. Then, if it would not. Would the course be necessary at 8 p.m. to determine the astronomical position?
The astronomical position is found independent of the course.
Exactly. Then it is necessary.
But the position that I mentioned to you was not observation. It was DR, that is dead reckoning.
I know you said it was dead reckoning, but I thought the speed was necessary.
Yes, you must have the speed.
If you will kindly work out and put into the record the time from which you reckoned the speed and give me, as nearly as possible, such information as you had, which enabled you to report to the captain Sunday night at 8 o'clock the position of the Titanic, I shall be glad to have it as part of your sworn testimony. Now, as assistant navigating officer, what were the different methods by which you could ascertain the position of the ship? How many different methods were there?
Well, there's the sun.
That is under the head of the astronomical observation. The next one is by means of the revolution of the engine or propeller, and the next one on the log. Did you take them every 2 hours?
We have the log every 2 hours, and we are all the time navigating. We do not take observations once a day. We perhaps take 25 or 30 observations a day.
The duty of the quartermaster is to take the record of the log, is it not?
The quartermaster takes the log.
Do you compare that with the revolutions of the engines?
We ring him up, and we see how she's doing with the revolutions, whether she's going faster or going slower, and you'll find a corresponding difference in the log.
Then you put the positions on the chart for the information of the captain.
You send it in with the chip.
Do you know, Mr. Lowe, whether the Titanic received on Sunday a wireless message from the America reporting ice, which message the Titanic repeated to Cape Race?
I do not know, sir.
Did you hear anything about it?
I know there was something about ice, but I do not know anything about it.
Did you hear anything about it?
I remember there was a position there on the chart, something about ice, but I do not remember what it was.
Do you mean there was something indicated on the chart?
There was a slip that showed the position of the ice, the latitude and the longitude, but who reported it or anything else, I do not know about it.
And you did not examine it carefully yourself?
No, sir.
Can you tell me what the position was from recollection?
What position, sir?
of the ice described in the chart room on this memorandum?
No, I cannot. It's useless for me to try.
Was this an official memorandum, evidently?
What, sir?
Was this memorandum that you say you saw in the chart room reported by some officer of the ship?
Yes, sir, I suppose it would have been. It could not have been put there by anybody else because it was in our own chart room. The captain has a chart room of his own, and we have one.
Well, was it lying loose on the table?
No, it was stuck in the frame.
You took it out of the frame?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you go up to the frame?
Well, the frame is just above the table, and I saw it there.
And did you go up to it?
I saw it there casually.
And what did it say?
I do not know the words. Something about 40-something. I do not remember now what it was.
Was that the place where they kept those warnings?
The notice board. We have a notice board.
A rack used for that purpose?
What's more prominent where this chit was, for the simple reason that you always face that direction when you're working on the tables.
Were you working on a table?
Yes, I was working at the slip table.
And as you were working at the slip table, you could look up and see this report.
But I did not take any notice of it. It was only just the position, the latitude and longitude.
Can you give that position?
And the word ice was above it.
Can you give that position?
No, sir, I cannot. It's no good for me to try.
You are unable to say whether that was a wireless communication or whether that information was written down by some officer on the ship?
Well, when you come to think of it, it couldn't have been anything but wireless.
Then according to your impression, there was a wireless warning of that kind in the chart room, indicating the position in which ice might be expected at that hour or at that time.
That is my conclusion, yes.
And you did not examine it carefully?
No, I just looked at it casually.
What time of day was this?
It would be sometime after 2, I suppose.
On Sunday?
2 p.m. Sunday.
Did you ever see that memorandum again?
No.
Did you ever ask for it again?
No.
Did anybody ever call your attention to it again?
No.
Do you know whether it was signed by anyone?
No.
Do you know whether the name of any ship was attached to it?
No. I expect it was just a copy of the position on some message that we received. I do not know.
No, I'm not asking whether you know all about that or whether it was a copy or not. I'm asking...
No, there was no signature or anything.
There was none?
No.
What did you assume that was put there for in that rack?
For us to know that the ice was there?
Was it put there as a warning?
I suppose it was in a way.
Did it have that effect on you?
I'm powerless to do anything.
I did not ask that. I asked if it affected you as a warning.
I cannot say that it did. It simply said the ice was there, and that's all I know about it.
Did you communicate what you saw on that piece of paper to anyone else?
No, not that I remember.
Do you know whether the ice referred to was on the track of your ship?
I think it was to the northward of our track.
Well, what makes you think so?
That's just the idea that I have. I do not know. I do not know what interference is. I thought it was to the north of us.
You assume it was the north because the icebergs were coming from the north? Is that the reason?
I do not know, sir.
I will read you a message that is reported to have been communicated by the America to the Titanic. SS America via Titanic and Cape Race, Newfoundland, April 14th, 1912. Hydrographic Office, Washington, D.C. America passed 2 large icebergs, M4127 north, 58 west, on the 14th of April. Newth. Was that the message you saw?
No, sir. I saw no message. Only what I saw was that a chit was struck in the edge of the frame with the latitude and longitude down. I saw no message whatever.
Did you hear anything about any warning from the steamship Californian having been given?
No.
Or from any other source?
No.
Or from any other source?
No, sir.
That is the only warning you saw.
I do not say I saw that, sir.
And you did not take particular plans to familiarize yourself with that?
I did not say that I saw that, sir. I did not stipulate that I saw that, sir.
I did not say you did. I'm not saying you saw this.
I simply saw, as I tell you, a position and the word ice above it, and the position, latitude and longitude, stuck in the angle of a frame on the chart room wall, you might say, or side, and that is all I know about it.
And that was Sunday?
That was Sunday afternoon.
Did it look like a recent or new paper on that rack?
It was not strikingly so, sir. There was nothing particular about it.
If it had been there before...
Well, it must have been new, because it had not been there before.
Yes, you would have seen it if it had been there before. One more question, and I will let you go. Did you hear any pistol shots?
Yes.
And by whom were they fired Sunday night?
I heard them, and I fired them.
Where?
As I was going down the decks, and that I was being lowered down.
In lifeboat?
Lifeboat number 14.
What did you do?
Well, as I was going down the decks, I knew, or I expected at every moment, my boat would double up under my feet. I was quite scared of it, although, of course, it would not do for me to mention that fact to anybody else. I had overcrowded her, but I knew that I had to take a certain amount of risk. So I thought, well, I shall have to see that nobody else gets into the boat, or else it will be a case of...
That was as it was being lowered?
Yes. I thought if one additional body was to fall into that boat, that slight jerk of the additional weight might part the hooks or carry away on something, and no one would know what. There were 101 things to carry away. Then I thought, well, I'll keep an eye open. So as we were coming down the decks, coming down past the open decks, I saw a lot of Italians, Latin people, all along the ship's rails. Understand it was open, and they were all glaring, more or less like wild beasts ready to spring. That is why I yelled to look out and let go, bang, right along the ship's side.
How far from the ship's side was the lifeboat you were in?
I really do not know. I should say 3 or 4 feet.
It cleared each deck 3 or 4 feet?
No, I mean to say she was about that much off the ship's side.
Exactly.
So she came down like this, off the ship's side, 3 feet off.
There was a space there from 3 to 4 feet?
I will withdraw 4 feet and say 3 feet.
So there was a space of 3 feet between the side of the boat and the ship's side.
That is right.
And as you went down, you fired these shots.
As I went down, I fired these shots, and without intention of hurting anybody, and also with the knowledge that I did not hurt anybody.
And you are positive of that?
I'm absolutely positive.
And how do you know?
How do I know? Because I looked where I fired.
It was a dark night, was it not, to see?
Oh, but I could see where I was shooting. A man does not want to shoot over here and look over there, or to shoot here and look there, but to look where he shoots. I shot between the boat and the ship's side so these people would hear and see the discharge.
You shot this revolver through that 3-foot space?
Yes, I think I fired 3 times, as there were 3 decks.
How far were you below the boat deck where you were loading the passengers when you fired your first shot?
How far was I below the boat deck?
Yes.
I was on the boat deck.
When you fired the shots?
No, when I lowered the passengers.
I know that. But how far were you below the boat deck when you fired?
Well, there's the boat deck, 1 deck, and then 2 deck. That is A, B, and C.
Were you below C deck when you fired?
No, I finished up at C.
Were you below B deck when you fired?
Yes, sir.
Do you mean to tell me that these Italians were crowding around the boat deck, A deck or B deck, glaring at you?
They were hanging around these open decks with the windows open because you do not want better proof than seeing them.
You fired these shots up in that 3-foot space between the lifeboat you were coming down in and the Titanic?
Yes, sir.
Were there any people on the rail or close to the edge of the top of the sun deck when your lifeboat was lowered?
Were there people on the sun deck?
When your lifeboat was lowered?
No.
Was Mr. Ismay there when your lifeboat was lowered?
Sun deck? There is no sun deck.
Well, the boat deck. Some of your officers call it the sun deck, and some of them call it the boat deck. I mean the top deck where the lifeboats were.
No, I did not fire it upward. I did not fire up.
Where did you fire?
I fired horizontally.
You only had a space of 3 feet.
Oh, no, I had more. I had the width of the boat. I was standing up on the after part of her. From the center line of the boat, that would give another 2 feet or so that would be 5 feet.
But if you had fired downward toward the water, you would have been limited to that space.
Yes.
If you fired upward, you would fire along the ship's side.
Well, I fired horizontally.
Upward?
Horizontally.
In what direction from the ship?
Along the ship.
And you are positive you did not hit anybody?
I am absolutely positive that I hit nobody. If you shoot a man directly, you can only see a round blur of the discharge, but if you shoot across him like that, you will see the length of it. I shot so they would know that I was fully armed. That's the reason.
And that you did not propose to have anybody else in your boat?
I did not. Not a single soul more.
Nobody in addition to those who was already there?
That is all. I had quite enough.
And in order that no one should make an attempt from the deck, you fired how many shots?
I think it was 3.
And what did you do with your revolver after that?
I've still got it.
Did you put it in your pocket?
I have not got it in my pocket now.
You put it in your pocket after you fired those 3 shots?
Well, yes, I put it in my pocket and put the safety catch on because it's a Browning automatic. There were, I suppose, 4 more remaining.
Oh, what we call a 7-shooter?
I did not know what you call it.
Well, what do you call it?
It's an automatic. I think it carries 8.
Did you have any occasion to use it afterwards?
None whatever, sir.
And you did not use it afterward?
I did not use it.
I think I have no more questions.
This was the best one yet.
It truly, truly was.
I forgot how over it Senator Smith is with Lowe. It just really, okay, that's taking up time. We don't need to get into that. And just any time he wants to give you any detail about the context of what's going on.
Unless you don't give detail, and then I wanted it.
No, I just need the name.
Oh, but I love Lowen's getting up with it. Like, yep. I'm not an autograph hunter.
Yeah.
The sun deck? What's this?
We don't have a sun deck. Do you think he only had 2 names?
It was so Napoleon Dynamite.
I think, yeah. Sun deck. I think, and I'm going to just choose in my heart to believe, that he had more names.
Oh, I think so, too.
And when Senator Smith told him to go faster,
yeah,
he was like, that's all.
Yeah.
No,
right. Yeah.
And then he's like, you don't have anything else? I thought you had all their names on a card. Nope, not an autograph hunter. Mm-mm.
And what a busy, busy man.
Oh,
Lowe
my
was.
goodness. I know.
He was like Superman, all out there.
Yes.
Zip,
okay, we're going to put you guys, let me first of all, he had the most people in his boat when they lowered. So I get his concern.
Yes.
And good thing after all that he grabbed the revolver.
No point having it if you're not going to use it.
But, yeah, because if anybody had jumped in the boat, and then he had the
tie
most
y'all
people
together.
in the lifeboat. Yeah, and then he went and found other boats that weren't full, put all his people in. He's the only one that's gone back.
So I can go back. Right.
And luckily, he, the collapsible boat where the people were punching themselves to stay alive, he saved them all.
And he waited close enough when he went back to the...
Yes. That if people had left the mast...
If they could get to them... Yeah.
Yeah. Still, that had to be a brutal 2 hours.
Oh, I can't even imagine. And knowing that if you go in, y'all are gone. And if I don't, they're going down. Yeah. And such tough decisions.
And Senator Smith was just so mean.
Yeah.
There was not one, thank you for, being the only one so far to do that. Not one commendation of, a well done, just to stop elaborating.
And while he's doing
and tell me names.
Yeah. his focus is so off of point.
Oh, you couldn't tell me if the dead men were officers?
You didn't get any idea?
You didn't look in their pockets or anything? You decided to go look for other people, did you?
Even though he's pulling the one raft, and he's heading towards the Carpathia because I see
he doesn't want him to
I don't want
him
to leave. Oh, but wait, here's another boat. I better just
let's go grab these guys.
Just row on over there really fast while I'm dragging all these other people in the raft behind me, and we'll just roll right over here and get
we got a useless man who's dressed as a woman
and then,
who was not helping. If you're going to do that, at least be the first to come forward and help.
Yes.
Redeem yourself for a part of your life or something.
And then felt like he had to explain himself.
Yeah.
Why he wasn't kinder to him.
Right. Yeah, sorry, I pushed him in a little bit. Well, did you swear?
Oh. I didn't have time.
Did you say AG double hockey sticks again?
No.
I have to hold you in contempt. Yeah, this is really, for being our favorite sailor so far, Smith is really such a bow down to Puchin, and we'll let you take your time and get through it as needed, and then this guy trying to give you a couple details so that you understand the workings of the boat or the ship, and it was very very tense, but I like so I'm just always going to choose to believe that he had more than 2 names on his thing. Oh,
of course he did.
Getting back though to maybe an important matter, where are the people? When he said he went around the wreckage and stuff.
But there was no women.
No women.
But all the women weren't saved. But
we've had people, wondering where are the bodies?
But it doesn't sound like he didn't see enough bodies.
True, but it also doesn't sound like he was going through a horde of bodies.
No, he was just looking for
if there's 1,600 people that are
Yeah.
So it was just a little curious when he said, I
yeah.
didn't see any women, I didn't see any women floating around.
Because he doesn't volunteer a lot of information. Like,
well, he keeps
gun.
getting
I guess I'll
shot
tell
down.
you about a gun if you're going to ask. And I got 2 Senator Smith things that really rankled me.
Oh.
Really rankled me. The first one was the different ways of knowing where a boat's location is. How many are there? And he starts to say, and then he jumps in.
Yeah,
there's
I don't
3.
need that.
There's 3, and it's this and this and this.
Yeah.
So
and
why did you ask? What was the point? I don't understand the point of that whole.
And going back, because they already had a tiff about it in episode 1 or whenever he originally asked. Yeah. And then why is he going back
We've
to it?
been through this. He's not going to give you more. You'd think Fleet would have taught him to just let it go. And then he just, oh my gosh, was Smith excited when there was somebody had a message about an iceberg on the ship. Well, oh my gosh, he was so excited.
Okay, but Senator Smith, we knew that.
Yeah, but he's got proof now. He's just quivering with excitement. He's just, oh my gosh. So let's talk about this note.
They said it, and it was just, they said they put ice, and they put it on, like, the latitude and longitude, and that it was north. Like, other people have said it, too. So he was just really, I feel like he was just really mean again to Lowe. Like,
yeah, I think out of all that Lowe did, his biggest focus was, ha-ha.
There, you saw this
there was
piece
a
of
note.
paper.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah, like it's somehow
going to trying to hide this, but I found
should have
it.
just, obviously they got that note and they didn't, they noted it and then they didn't do anything about it. They didn't change your course. We already know that. So what are you?
Yeah,
trying to pin it on?
This was at 2:00. He saw it. What did you want him to do at 2:00?
And then, so what would that mean? That he would pin it on the Marconi Graham guys? I mean...
Or maybe, why don't we just pin it on Lowe?
It sounds like that. So, yeah, I mean, he had a gun.
He did. And he was not very forthcoming with
and I
his stuff.
I heard shots because I fired him. Certainly did hear him. But, I mean, he sounds very confident, and I got to wager... And listen, I'm not a gunsmith... But I got to wager Senator Smith has never fired a gun because
a 7-shooter.
Yeah, and he just really had no. You fired it vertically.
Wait, so you fire at
horizontally, so up.
How do you know you didn't hit anybody? Yeah, horizontally up. Yeah.
Oh, this one was rough. Senator Smith must be getting tired.
It was a really good one.
It's like when you're a mom with toddlers, and at the end of the day, you're all talked out, and all your words start coming out wrong, and you're stuttering, and you're just out. Yeah. I think Senator Smith is just...
Could be.
just done. Also, he's, not the best.
And whatever whatever he's upset about, he's just really...
Yeah, that's right. Because
nice
I keep forgetting that that he just read his message about the...
But that was hours ago.
And then, I mean, is he still thinking, like... It was at the very beginning that someone passed a note, right? So whoever passed the note... That
was in episode 2, though. He didn't bring it up.
2.
So that's like a third of the way into his interview.
Yeah, so then they're in the middle.
Then he brings it up, just like right in the middle. So are you a temperate man?
Yeah, and somebody just passed a note just now.
Or... Yeah, ask him about his drinking.
Yeah, which
That's
is
so
why...
weird.
Here we've got, so far, the only one that has gone back for anybody, and the person who acted like the most...
And just never stopped. Oh, I'll do this. I guess I'll fix this.
Yeah.
I'll take care of this.
And, then, what else what else, could you do? Or, of course I was 150 meters away, so that or feet away, so if anybody could come.
It was all so well thought out. Everything he did.
Everything I could to help people, and I'm not, I'm not afraid to say it, and...
Yeah, that was uncomfortable, but it was really, really interesting and a lot of stuff going on at the anger between them.
Yeah, it makes it. I mean, I did have to really bite my finger a couple times to stop from laughing because some of the stuff was very.
Yeah. Yep.
Horizontally, you mean up? Sun deck.
That was that's the part that got me.
I'm happy that stayed on the record.
Yes.
If I were Senator Smith, I'd be going through with a highlighter later. No,
this didn't happen. This didn't happen. So anyway, that was really
That's Lowe.
Intense. What a hero.
Yep.
Wow. I hope he really is a hero, not like some of these that I thought were heroes and then maybe not. But yeah, I believe in him.
Yeah.
He's got this. So, that's it for now. We'll see you next time.
Bye. As always, thank you for listening. Please be sure to let us know what you're thinking in the comments or at titanictranscripts@gmail.com. Also, be sure to check out our Facebook page, Titanic Transcripts, for more interesting tidbits and general discussion.